Have you ever heard of a person who was granted visions? And if once in our lifetime, we ourselves were allowed by God to see something beyond what the naked eye can perceive, in which direction would our lives turn? Today, I will tell you the story of a remarkable figure, one of the 4 women saints of the Church who were proclaimed doctors of the Church. She was granted the gift of visions from the age of 3, and that light accompanied her until the day she closed her eyes and departed this life. She was once someone who trembled before her own difference, who wished to remain silent to stay safe, yet in the end chose to follow the call of God. That very person later directly confronted and reproached Emperor Frederick Barbarossa and forcefully criticized Pope Anastasius IV for his weakness in the face of corruption within the Church. So what were the visions that the saint beheld? And what forged such extraordinary inner strength? Let us step together into the life of Saint Hildegard von Bingen. Before we embark on that journey, let me know from where in the world you are watching this video, or leave a single word. What happens when a fragile body becomes the place where light finds its way from early childhood, while the surrounding world passes by without ever knowing? In 1098, in Bermersheim, Germany, Saint Hildegard von Bingen was born into a noble family. This light did not appear as an image overwhelming the senses, but was present in the depth of the inner life, perceived through the eyes of the soul, while consciousness remained fully awake. This state did not separate the saint from ordinary life. She continued to see, to hear, and to be present among those around her. Yet at the same time, within her soul, another reality was quietly opening. One childhood incident left a deep imprint on the saint's memory. On one occasion, while walking with her nursemaid, she pointed to a pregnant cow and accurately described the appearance of the calf still in its mother's womb, from the color of its coat to the markings on its body. When the calf was born exactly as described, those who witnessed it were astonished. It was at that moment that the saint first realized that what she saw was not what everyone else could see. The amazement of others reflected to her a new awareness. That decision was made. More than 30 years went by within what seemed to be an unchanging rhythm. The saint prayed with the community, labored like every other nun, obeyed daily instructions, and learned to listen in silence. The visions did not disappear, but neither did they demand to be proclaimed. They were there, persistent and quiet, like an underground current beneath the surface of monastic life. Throughout that long period, the saint kept what she experienced concealed, sharing it only with Sister Jutta and with her spiritual director, Volmar, those whom she trusted to discern and safeguard her inner balance. There were no public sermons, no pages written. She lived as an anonymous person, blending into communal life, allowing the light to continue its work in silence. It was precisely this prolonged quiet that 30 years of seclusion were not a space in the history of the saint's life, but a time of accumulation, a place where a fragile being learned how to carry a great mystery. The light did not press, did not demand to be revealed prematurely. It waited, as if awaiting an appropriate moment to speak. And when that moment arrived, what had been nurtured in silence for 3 decades would step into the light, not as something unexpected, but as the inevitable result of a journey carefully prepared from early childhood. It was from this silent foundation that the story of the saint would begin to shift into a different rhythm, one in which the light would no longer remain only within the soul, but would begin to demand a clearer response. How could a light remain enduring within the soul over long years, silently shaping an entire life, while outwardly everything continued to flow according to the familiar rhythm of monastic life? After the early years of life had been laid upon a foundation of silence, Saint Hildegard von Bingen entered her youth with an experience that never departed from her. The visions did not come in isolated moments, nor did they appear as sudden events that flared up and then faded away. They were present as a continuous inner current, persistent over the years, which the saint called the shadow of the living light, umbra viventis lucis. This current did not overwhelm daily life, nor did it demand the attention of others. It was there, quietly and consistently, like the deep breathing of the soul. In the saint's experience, that light possessed order and clear distinction. She recognized that there was a primordial light, lux vivens, which is the source of all things, so radiant that the human being cannot face it directly. That light surpasses the capacity of the senses and the intellect, like the sun standing at the center, which no one can look at straight on. What the saint most frequently received was the umbra viventis lucis, the gentle reflection of that glory, sufficient for the human being to endure, sufficient to illuminate without dissolving the condition of the creature. This distinction helped the saint understand that her experience was not a possession of God's glory, but a being touched by that glory in a measure appropriate to humanity. The visions took place in a state of complete wakefulness. Her eyes remained open, her ears continued to hear, her hands continued their work according to the rhythm of monastic life. The saint could enter the hours of prayer, attend to daily tasks, and listen to instruction, while in the depths of her inner life, the light remained present and continued to shine. These two dimensions did not exclude one another. They existed in parallel, interwoven within a single life. As a result, the visionary experience did not sever her attachment to reality. On the contrary, it permeated reality, giving greater depth to every gesture. It was precisely this wakefulness that gave the saint's experience a very distinctive character. The visions did not draw her out of the world, nor did they distance her from the community. She remained fully present in monastic life, continued to participate in the common rhythm, and continued to learn and to obey. The light did not impose a parallel life, but integrated itself into the life already being lived, lifting it from within. This enabled the saint to preserve balance, a balance rarely seen between mystery and the ordinary. Over time, the saint learned to live with the light as with her own breath. She did not attempt to control it, nor did she seek to interpret immediately what she saw. The light carried images, and at times carried understanding, but it was always received in an attitude of listening. The saint was aware that she was not the source from which the light emanated, but the place through which the light passed. It was in this awareness that she likened herself to a feather on the breath of God. This image expresses a fundamental disposition, a surrender to the movement of God, allowing herself to be carried in the direction guided by that breath. This prolonged experience did not lead to a sense of privileged separation. On the contrary, it deepened within the saint a quiet humility. The more persistently the light was present, the more clearly the saint became aware of her own limitations. Each vision was accompanied by the conviction that what was seen surpassed the capacity of words to express it. For this reason, she chose discretion, allowing the light to do its work in silence, without being distorted by haste or by the desire for recognition. In monastic life, that discretion became an interior discipline. The saint knew that the light did not demand immediate proclamation, but required long-term fidelity. She allowed time to fulfill its task, allowing the experience to be tested over years, through the steady rhythm of life, through the limitations of the body, and through the demands of obedience. The inner current continued, neither accelerating nor slowing its pace, like an underground river flowing beneath the earth, nourishing everything without display. It was precisely in this prolongation that the light gradually shaped the way the saint perceived the world. Every object, every event, every person was placed within a broader order. The saint began to recognize that the light does not separate human beings from history, but places history within the light of God. This way of seeing had not yet been expressed in words, had not yet been written into books, but it had already taken root deeply in the way she was present, the way she prayed, the way she listened. The years of youth, therefore, were not a time of empty waiting. They were a time of silent accumulation, in which experience was repeated long enough to become a foundation. The light continued to flow, continuous and consistent, teaching the saint a fundamental lesson, That mystery is not grasped through possession, but through enduring fidelity. As that inner current extended over many years, it gradually prepared the saint for another turning point. The light was already there. The order had been recognized. The balance had been formed. What remained was the moment when the light would speak, no longer only as a presence, but as an invitation that demanded a response. It was from this foundation that the narrative would move into a new phase, where the light would not only illuminate, but would begin to require the saint to step out of familiar silence and into a greater responsibility. The light had remained long enough in silence to begin doing something else, no longer stopping at illuminating the inner life, but gradually bestowing understanding, as though that light carried its own language, touching the intellect and the soul at the same time. Within the interior flow that extended throughout her youth, Saint Hildegard von Bingen came to realize that the visions did not carry images alone, but also carried knowledge. This understanding arrived directly and immediately, not through the usual paths of study. When the light was present, sacred scripture opened itself before her mind with a clear inner order. Texts that seemed fragmented becoming connected into a single current of salvation history. The sacred pages were no longer a collection of words to be memorized, but became a living reality contemplated from within. Alongside scripture, the light also opened for the saint a comprehensive vision of the structure of the universe. She did not approach the world as a series of isolated phenomena, but as a whole arranged according to order. Heaven, earth, humanity, and other creatures appeared in harmonious relationship, each element holding its own place within a larger plan. This understanding was not expressed through formulas or diagrams, but through a profound intuition of the interconnectedness of all things, an intuition that rendered the world meaningful rather than chaotic. Even the field of herbal medicine was illuminated in this manner. The saint did not learn through books or formal schooling, but perceived the relationship between plants, the human body, and the rhythms of nature. Each herb carried within it a specific capacity for healing, placed within the order of creation as a gift for humanity. This knowledge was not separated from faith, but bound to the conviction that God cares for humanity through the very world He has created. What made the saint's experience extraordinary was the path by which such understanding was attained. There were no schools, no theological academies, no teachers in the conventional sense, yet the knowledge reached a depth that surpassed its era. She did not accumulate learning piece by piece, but received it within a unified vision. It was precisely this synthesis that allowed what the saint understood, and later expressed, to transcend any single field, touching theology, cosmology, and human life as a unified whole. For a long period of time, the saint kept this knowledge within herself, just as she had once kept the light. Knowledge did not press to be made public. It continued to be tested through monastic life, through obedience, through the limitations of the body. Prolonged silence helped to discern what belonged to the light and what needed to be kept for herself alone. It was precisely through this process that the saint learned to distinguish between understanding and being sent to speak. The decisive turning point occurred in the year 1141, when the saint was 42 years old. In a vision of unprecedented intensity, a stream of fire poured down from heaven, not like a fire that destroys, but like a fire that illuminates. That stream of fire touched her entire being, awakening intellect and soul at the same time. Everything that had been accumulated in silence over many years suddenly converged into a single moment, as though the light had chosen its time to reveal itself. Within that light resounded a clear command, leaving no space for negotiation. The saint was called to write down what she had seen and heard. This command was not a gentle invitation, nor was it accompanied by lengthy explanations. It defined its purpose decisively. The act of writing was not meant to explain or to argue, but to bear witness. What had been granted in the light now had to be set into words, so that others could read, could listen, could discern. Faced with this command, the saint did not immediately obey. The responsibility of writing, of bringing the mystery out of silence, appeared too great. Her fear did not arise from doubt about the light, but from an awareness of the consequences of making it public. To write what she had seen meant stepping out of anonymity, accepting the judgment of others, and facing the risk of being misunderstood. This hesitation did not remain only in her mind, but spread into her body. The saint's body began to react through illness and exhaustion. Her strength diminished, pains persisted, as though her entire being were bearing a pressure beyond its capacity. This condition was not an isolated event, but was bound to the refusal of the command. When the light calls and the human person hesitates, inner tension gradually finds an outlet through the body. It was precisely through this experience that the saint realized that delay does not bring safety, but only prolongs a state of wounding. Change began when the saint decided to obey. Taking up the pen did not occur as an act of confidence or enthusiasm, but as a trembling step forward. The first lines were written in the awareness that they were not the product of personal ability, but a response to the light that had bestowed knowledge. As the writing process began, the saint's health gradually recovered. This recovery did not come instantly like a dramatic miracle, but unfolded slowly, alongside the reordering of her relationship with God through obedience. Writing became an act of healing, healing for the body because inner tension was released when the command was answered. Healing for the soul because the light found a path outward, no longer held back in heavy silence. And above all, healing for the relationship with God, as the saint moved from a state of concealment to a state of witness. From that moment on, knowledge granted directly from the light was no longer a closed interior experience. It began to be transformed into written words, into testimony, into something that could be read and discerned within the church. What had been prepared through decades of silence now entered a new phase, one in which the light did not merely illuminate, but began to shape a public mission. It is precisely here that the story of the saint shifts into a different rhythm. From personal experience, from knowledge bestowed in silence, the journey was about to enter into dialogue with the authority of the church. The first written pages would not remain within the space of the monastery, but were being prepared to be placed before the discerning gaze of the whole church. And the light, which had guided the saint in silence, now began to lead her forward into history. Could an inner experience, formed in silence over many decades, step into the light of the church while preserving the integrity of its original truth? After deciding to obey and take up the pen, Saint Hildegard von Bingen entered an entirely new phase of her life. Writing did not take place as an intellectual activity in the usual sense, but as an act of fidelity, with each line shaped by an experience that had been long nurtured within. The work entitled Scivias emerged in that context, not in order to present isolated personal reflections, but to record the visions together with the spiritual meaning bound to them. For the saint, writing was not a matter of composing according to personal preference, but of setting down what had been given, with the awareness that the written word needed to remain faithful to the light that had illuminated it. Scivias bears a tightly ordered structure, reflecting the inner order of the visions themselves. Images, symbols, and explanations are placed within a continuous flow, enabling the reader to enter the same journey of discernment that the saint herself underwent. Each vision is presented as part of a larger whole, in which salvation history, the life of the church, and the human condition are set in relation to one another. The composition of this work required great patience, for the saint had to find ways to express realities that exceeded ordinary language, while still preserving the clarity necessary for others to read and contemplate. When the first manuscript was completed, the question was no longer whether to write or not, but before whom what had been written would be placed. The year 1147 marked a decisive turning point when the manuscripts of Scivias were presented to Pope Eugenius III for evaluation. This did not occur in a private or discreet setting, but within the broader framework of ecclesial life, where matters of faith, doctrine, and theological discernment were always examined with care. For the saint, presenting the manuscripts to the Pope was not an act of seeking personal reassurance, but a necessary step of obedience. The visions had been given to her as a daughter of the Church, and therefore they needed to be placed under the discernment of the Church itself. That moment carried significant consequences. Once the texts were brought before the highest authority, they would be subjected to rigorous examination, not based on emotion or reputation, but on their conformity with apostolic faith. Pope Eugenius III personally read the manuscripts, taking time to discern and to evaluate the theological content presented. This reading was not a formal gesture, but a serious process of consideration, in which the visions were examined in relation to Scripture, the tradition of the Church, and current teaching. The powerful imagery and symbolic language of Scivius required particular attention, since they carried both mystical depth and direct engagement with core questions of the life of faith. Within this process of discernment, the texts were examined in the light of the Church's faith to determine the origin and meaning of what was presented. What was sought was not novelty intended to impress, but fidelity to the revelation already given. It was precisely through this comparison that the value of the visions gradually became clear. They did not diverge from the path of faith. Rather, they illuminated that path through a distinctive mode of expression, arising from personal experience, yet opening outward to the wider community. The outcome of the discernment process was a decision of confirmation. The visions were officially recognized as coming from God. This recognition did not place the saint at the center of the Church's attention, but situated the visions in their proper place, as a gift given for the service of the common life of faith. For the saint, this was a moment of profound release. The light had been discerned, the written word had been heard, and the mission she carried within herself was now confirmed by ecclesial authority. From this point onward, the saint's position changed in a fundamental way. She was no longer seen merely as a cloistered nun with private inner experiences, but as a voice entrusted with a mission. Permission was given to continue writing and to teach publicly, opening a new phase in her life. This transition did not arise from personal ambition, but from obedience following upon obedience. The saint stepped out of the familiar silence of the monastery, carrying with her what had been prepared over many years, to place it at the service of the Church. The official recognition of the Church also carried a deeper significance. It demonstrated that mystical experience, when lived in fidelity and obedience, can become a rich source for communal life. The saint's visions, once kept hidden in silence, now became part of a broader current in which the Church listens, discerns, and receives what the Holy Spirit stirs within history. For Saint Hildegard, this moment was not the conclusion of a journey, but the beginning of a new responsibility. The light had long been given, understanding had been formed in silence, and now the written word was confirmed to resound within the community. From a hidden life, she entered the role of a public witness, with a clear awareness that the mission did not belong to herself, but to God and to the Church. It was from this confirmed foundation that the saint's story would continue to unfold. The subsequent writings, the journeys yet to come, and the public words all arose from this moment of discernment. The light that once guided in silence was now placed within history to continue illuminating the path of the Church in an age marked by profound upheaval. What happens when a voice that has been affirmed by the Church must step out of familiar silence and face the gaze of human suspicion and the weight of responsibility? After the official recognition by the Church, Saint Hildegard von Bingen entered a new threshold in her life. The light that had been discerned now carried a concrete consequence, namely, action. Writing and teaching had been permitted, but for that mission to take root, an appropriate living space was required, a place where prayer, study, and service could be ordered according to the rhythm suggested by the light. It was here that the decision to leave Dissy-Bodenberg took shape, not as a hasty rupture, but as the result of a long process of discernment. That decision immediately encountered strong opposition from the male monks at Disibodenberg. In the monastic context of the time, a woman religious determining the path of her own community was seen as exceeding established norms. The objections took many forms, ranging from concerns about discipline and authority to suspicions regarding motivation. For the saint, this was a new kind of trial, no longer arising from within as before, but emerging from concrete relationships in which power and custom were tightly interwoven. The saint faced this opposition with a quiet steadfastness. The light that had taught her to listen and discern now taught her to stand firm. The decision to depart was not intended to seek personal freedom, but to create a space in which the mission could be carried out fully. The separation of the women's community thus had a constructive character, not a confrontational one. Although many tensions had to be endured, the saint maintained a rhythm of prayer and dialogue, so that each step would be placed within fidelity to the Church. In 1150, the monastery of Rupertsberg was founded. This foundation marked a clear turning point, as the women's community now had its own place to live monastic life according to a new orientation. Rupertsberg was located along the Rhine River, a setting sufficiently secluded to nurture interior life, yet open to the surrounding world. This space quickly became a vibrant center where prayer, labor, and study were woven together. 15 years later, in 1165, the monastery of Bingen was established. The founding of an additional monastery reflected the growth of the community and the increasingly evident need for the way of life that the saint had set in motion. These two monasteries did not exist as closed enclaves, but as places of encounter, where people came to seek support for both spirit and body. From here, the influence of the saint expanded further, extending beyond the confines of a single community. In her role as abbess, the saint assumed comprehensive responsibility for the life of the community. She attended to monastic discipline, while at the same time opening new dimensions of spiritual life. Liturgical music became an important part of the monastic rhythm. The melodies that were composed were not meant to embellish the rites, but to help the community enter more deeply into prayer. Music, in the saint's understanding, was a way for the soul to attune itself to the order of creation, allowing song to become an echo of the light that had illuminated it. Alongside music, the saint studied and applied natural herbal medicine. This concern arose from the conviction that the human person must be cared for holistically, both body and spirit. Knowledge of plants and their effects on health was placed in relationship with the life of prayer. Healing was not separated from faith, but was understood as part of the care that God offers to His creation. Within the monasteries, this care was carried out in a spirit of service, open to those who came seeking help. The saint's influence did not remain confined within the monasteries. She wrote advisory letters to bishops, kings, and princes, individuals bearing significant responsibility in both society and the church. These letters did not adopt a tone of flattery or compromise, but reflected a direct perspective, illuminated by the light that had shaped her interior life. Through her correspondence, the saint entered into dialogue with the issues of her time, from ecclesial discipline to social morality, always to guide people back to the order that had been established from the beginning. When she was over 60 years old, a new phase opened once again. The saint undertook 4 journeys of public preaching, something rare for a woman in the medieval context. These journeys were not undertaken in search of renown, but as a response to the urgent needs of the time. In the places she visited, the saint called for the renewal of the church, urged moral reform in society, and reminded people of their responsibility before the light that had been given to them. Public preaching placed the saint at the center of social and religious movements. She spoke to communities, to the clergy, and to those seeking direction amid the upheavals of the age. Her voice carried the weight of experience tested over many years, through silence, through discernment, and through action. Her words did not impose, but opened pathways, inviting listeners to enter a process of self-examination and renewal. The period of founding monasteries and public activity thus became a significant chapter in the saint's life. From one who had lived in seclusion, she stepped forward as a builder, a leader of communities, and a voice of influence within the church. Each step followed naturally from the previous one, from interior light to concrete action, from silence to public speech. This coherence gave strength to her witness, as life and mission became one. When the monasteries had been established, the journeys completed, and the saint's voice had begun to resound within a broader community, one thing became clear. The light that had been bestowed did not stop at building structures or shaping moral direction. It continued to lead the saint toward deeper dimensions of service to humanity, where suffering and hope intersect. From here, the story will move toward how that light touched concrete lives through works of healing, opening a new chapter in a journey that had begun in silence. What happens when the light that has guided the mind in action now touches fragile, suffering lives, seeking life amid the vulnerability of the human condition? From the monasteries that were founded and the public journeys that unfolded, Saint Hildegard von Bingen became a point of convergence for people who carried illness and hope. They came not because of fame, but because a sense spread within the community that here there existed a bridge between prayer and concrete support. The saint received them within a space permeated by the rhythm of prayerful life, where every gesture was placed in relation to God. Miracles, if they occurred, were not regarded as the goal, but as fruits arising from a fidelity tested over many years. Instances of healing through prayer took place in an atmosphere of stillness. The saint listened to the stories of the sick without haste, allowing suffering to be given voice. Then prayer was raised, simple and focused, directed toward God as the source of life. In those moments, the sick person no longer stood alone before his or her suffering. They were placed within the flow of the community and of intercessory prayer. Some experienced a spreading sense of relief, some regained strength, and others found inner peace even when the body had not yet changed. Each case followed its own rhythm, yet all were bound by the same attitude of surrender. Alongside prayer, the laying on of hands became a visible sign of intercession. This gesture was carried out with care, without any sense of display, yet bearing the depth of presence. A hand placed upon the forehead or the shoulder of the sick person served as a point of connection, linking human pain with the prayer of the community. In that gesture, the sick person sensed closeness, support, and the knowledge of being remembered. Many later recounted that it was precisely this presence that opened within them a new strength, enabling them to rise again both physically and spiritually. Over time, stories of healing spread. People spoke to one another of bodies restored, of pains eased, of long-endured illnesses now relieved. Alongside these were changes more difficult to measure, souls that rediscovered meaning, people once submerged in despair who learned again how to hope. For the saint, healing always bore two parallel dimensions. The body was supported and the soul was opened. These two dimensions were intertwined, reflecting the integral vision of the human person that shaped all of her activity. Healing miracles also introduced a new challenge. Reputation could spread quickly, bringing expectations that exceeded human capacity. The saint therefore ensured that the rhythm of monastic life was not swept up in noise and excitement. Prayer retained its central place so that everything could be restored to proper order. The sick were welcomed, but not turned into objects of curiosity. Healing continued to take place in discretion so that the light would be respected as a gift and not transformed into an instrument. Alongside healing others, the saint herself repeatedly experienced illness throughout her life. Periods of exhaustion emerged at decisive moments, especially when she hesitated before new demands of her mission. Her body reacted like a barometer, reflecting inner tension. These illnesses were not viewed as accidental misfortunes, but as reminders that relationship with God calls for a total response. During such periods, the saint felt her own fragility with clarity. Strength diminished, the capacity for activity was limited, and pain forced her to stop. It was precisely in this stopping that the light spoke again, not through radiant visions, but through a quiet urging toward obedience. When the saint accepted what was asked, when she moved forward in a faith that had been tested, recovery came tangibly. Health returned, sometimes swiftly, as a confirmation that obedience restores balance to the whole person. These recoveries became a recurring miracle within the saint's own life. This miracle did not take place before crowds, but within the inner space where body and soul meet. Through it, the saint learned that healing cannot be separated from relationship with God. When that relationship is rightly ordered, life finds its flow again. This personal experience deepened her compassion for those who came seeking help, because she herself had tasted from within both fragility and restoration. The surrounding community also recognized the connection between prayer, obedience, and healing. This did not lead to simplistic conclusions, but fostered a cautious way of living. Each illness was viewed as an invitation to discernment. Each recovery was received with gratitude. In such an atmosphere, miracles did not overshadow the life of faith, but deepened it, placing human beings before the mystery of life as gift. Over time, healing miracles became a natural part of the mission, inseparable from teaching and guidance. Those who were healed carried their stories with them, becoming witnesses to what had taken place in silence. These stories returned to nourish communal life, strengthening faith and awakening hope. The saint continued to keep everything in proper order, so that the light would not be obscured by attention focused on phenomena. It was precisely within this balance that the healing mission reached its depth. The light that had guided the intellect and directed public action now touched the concrete wounds of human lives. The saint stood at the intersection of prayer and care, of faith and lived reality. Each miracle, whether seen or inwardly perceived, pointed toward a greater reality, the reality of God at work in history through those willing to respond. As healing miracles continued, a new question gradually took shape. If the light could heal bodies and sustain souls, what would that light say about the deeper movements of history and of the Church? From here, the saint's journey prepared to move into another phase, where insight and prophetic speech would draw her into direct engagement with realities greater than individual lives, extending beyond the scope of personal destinies. What happens when the light that once healed the body and sustained the soul begins to shine directly into the dark corners of humanity, of the Church, and of history? After years devoted to prayer, teaching, and healing, Saint Hildegard von Bingen entered a new phase of her mission, marked by insight. The light that had guided her in silence now revealed hidden spiritual realities in those she encountered, allowing her to perceive unspoken wounds, conflicts, and sins. This insight did not lead to judgment, but to compassionate counsel, helping others face truth and move toward conversion through a union of clarity and love. This gift extended through her correspondence, with nearly 400 letters offering counsel, warning, and encouragement to people she often never met. Through them, her insight reached deeply into personal circumstances, reflecting a profound understanding of interior motivations. This same capacity shaped her prophetic mission, especially in Civius, where she portrayed the Church as a once beautiful woman marred by corruption, calling consciences to awaken amid growing greed, abuse of power, and spiritual laxity. From this vision arose prophetic warnings. Delayed renewal would allow secular power to encroach upon spiritual life, leading to disorder, false teachings, and shaken faith. Figures such as the Antichrist appeared symbolically as signs of opposition to the light, not in pessimism, but in vigilance and a call to return to the source. Her prophetic role led her to confront authority directly. She rebuked Emperor Frederick Barbarossa for contributing to division within the Church, and warned against elevating secular power above spiritual order. She also criticized Pope Anastasius IV for weakness in the face of corruption, acting not from defiance, but from fidelity to the light entrusted to her, reminding leaders that authority must be joined to responsibility and integrity. Her vision extended beyond human affairs to creation itself. Through the concept of viriditas, she described the vitality God placed in all creatures and warned that moral disorder wounds this life force, leading to imbalance in nature. Climatic disturbances in her visions symbolized a world out of harmony, calling humanity to recognize its responsibility toward creation as part of its relationship with God. This phase of insight, prophecy, and confrontation marked the height of her public mission. Choosing speech over dangerous silence, she spoke with fidelity to the light, leaving a lasting imprint despite resistance. As these words were spoken and conflicts endured, her mission gradually moved toward completion in silence, preparing the way for the final chapter of her life. When a life has been wholly guided by light, its ending appears not as dissolution, but as a quiet completion. After years lived between silence and speech, prayer and action, Saint Hildegard von Bingen entering her final days peacefully within the monastery that had sustained her lifelong journey, surrounded by a community marked by shared fidelity. Her body bore age and illness, yet her inner clarity endured. On September 17, 1179, at the age of 81, she died gently, like a breath coming to rest after a fulfilled mission. Those present sensed a deep completeness. A sign was remembered, two streams of light crossing in the form of a cross above the monastery, received as a final confirmation that her life had been lived in fidelity and entrusted to God. After her death, her influence continued through her writings, music, and prophetic voice, gaining depth as later generations engaged her unified vision of faith, humanity, and the cosmos. Her recognition came late, but enduringly, when in 2012 Pope Benedict XVI proclaimed her a Doctor of the Church, affirming the lasting value of a life guided by inner light and lived in silence and obedience. This title clarified rather than altered her story. Her life, completed in time, remains an open invitation to learn how to listen, discern, and live faithfully. The light that guided her was entrusted to the memory of the Church, to continue illuminating new journeys for those who seek to walk with the same faith from beginning to end. O God, source of all light, we thank you for the gift of Saint Hildegard von Bingen, who allowed your light to guide her whole life, from silence to speech, from prayer to witness in history. Amid the noise of our age, grant us the grace to listen to your voice in the depths of the soul, to truth beyond fear and calculation. Teach us, through Saint Hildegard, to pause, so that your light may guide us. Grant us discernment to recognize the light that gives life and the darkness that clouds conscience. Help us place all things beneath your light in fidelity and love. Grant us the grace of fidelity in daily life, in speech, and in silence, so that our lives may become a quiet and enduring response amid the light and shadow of our time. Amen. I offer my blessing to all brothers and sisters who have clicked like on this video. May the Lord, through the intercession of the saints, grant you peace, good health, and an abundance of blessings in your lives. Return to the tabernacle, return to the light of the Eucharistic body of Christ. Return to the moment of silent companionship with the one who awaits us in the sacrament of love. And if, in what I have shared today, you have found only one or two sentences that touch your heart and draw you closer to God, then I am already content.